Patel.
In progress. What?
Cool. My name is Deep Patel, and today I'm going to be hosting a presentation on active listening skills. Who wants to take over? Roxanne, your turn.
My name is Roxanne Cheney, and I'm from McCarrying Place, and I'm currently the chair of the board.
Cool. You can call on somebody.
Don Rapsky.
Okay, I'm Don Rapsky. I'm on the board of the Carrying Place. I call on Judy, please.
I'm Judy Bradley, and I'm a volunteer, and I love this group. How about Patty?
Hi, I'm Patty Burke, and I am on the board, and I also do all of the intake applications. Cheryl.
I am Cheryl Clay, and I am a volunteer, and I also am on the Read On program.
Call on somebody.
Cheryl, you got to call somebody.
Huh?
Call on somebody.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sue?
Well, I'm Sue Dozier, and I'm a volunteer, and I also do the Read On program. And Bob?
Yeah, I'm Bob Cook. I'm on the board, and I kind of oversee sustainability and technology. Let's go with Kathy.
Yes, good morning.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Kathy.
Huh?
Tell us a
Hi.
little bit about you, Kathy.
Oh, that's wonderful. I hope it's good.
But say what your name is.
My name's Kathy Utterback.
It's so nice to have you here. How long have you been here how long have you been on this team?
I think about 5 years. I think, or more. It's been I'd have to look back, but it's been a joy.
It's been a long time. It's been a joy for us too. And you can call on somebody else now.
Huh?
You can call somebody else here to introduce themselves.
Okay. Has that's triple. I went brain dead.
Well, who hasn't been on yet?
I can't think. It's off. I can't see the pictures.
Cheryl and Sharon and Marilyn have to go yet.
Hey, Judy. Pardon? Yeah, that's Judy.
How about Marilyn? Marilyn.
Yeah, let's go to Marilyn.
Well, I had to disappear a minute. My allergies are bothering me, so if I disappear, I've probably gone to get a cough drop or something. I just started calling people this last year. I saw your group announce a need for people to call just to check in with them through the Senior Center newsletter. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, welcome. It's so nice to have you. And we're really going to enjoy ourselves on Monday, aren't we?
I'm looking forward to it.
And you could call on somebody else.
Let's see, who's left?
Sharon, June. I think that
Sharon.
might be it.
Yep, that is it.
Sharon?
Well, as you can see, I'm number 18596. I don't know why that pops up every time. That's not my name. But I'm Sharon Turpin, and I've had a phone buddy for right at a year now. And it's been very nice thinking back how it's the relationship has developed. When I called her yesterday, we usually talk on Thursday afternoons, background, and so she had some oldies playing, and we just kind of sang like feeling groovy and stuff like that. So sometimes it's not a conversation, but we do. I think it's at that stage where if she feels like singing songs, we'll sing songs.
Mhm.
It was
That's really nice, Sharon.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's what
Last
friendship
week
is
here.
all about.
yep.
And June has not introduced herself.
Hi, I'm June Hudson. I have, what are we doing here?
Just tell us a little something
Tony?
interesting about you.
I'm going to call you back. I'm right in the middle of class.
Something unique about me?
Yep.
Oh, well, I was in the Navy,
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Naval Reserve. I have muscular dystrophy.
mhm.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know anything else. I play piano,
Oh,
Oh, that's
that's
or I
cool.
try. I just try.
Yeah.
Hey, A for effort, right?
Yeah, really.
Cool. So I'm gonna get into our presentation today. I have a couple videos for us to watch. I'm gonna start by sharing the screen.
I didn't do nothing.
That one right there.
Went out to dinner, and that was it. That was enough.
Yeah, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me move that. Let me play that. Can you hear the audio?
No,
Yes. No.
You
No,
can't hear the audio?
no.
yeah.
No.
Nope.
I only got one text and no emails.
Well,
If you stop your share and then go and click those two boxes before
See,
you
the
share
thing
your
is-
screen.
the
Yeah,
thing
there's
is,
a
I
share audio
did-
button in the bottom left.
I did, but it's not working.
Oh dear.
Okay, let's try it one more time. We're going to talk about active listening.
Got it.
So yep. Okay.
Perfect.
No, I still
There-
can't hear him.
No,
Oh, well,
Can we
well,
see
we
the
did for a
screen?
while. I could see the screen.
1 hour course on
And I can hear something.
acting like a cat.
So are we good? I've paused the video for now. Can we see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna restart it. Can we hear the audio?
No,
Yes.
Okay.
Can you get rid of all that stuff on the side?
There's stuff on the side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to full screen on that.
Okay.
Oh, crap.
Is that better?
No.
no.
I will tell you more about that at the end of the video. Well, let me just exit full screen.
No,
It
the
sounds
one next
like-
to it.
It sounds like someone is talking in our group.
Mhm.
Okay, let me figure that out.
Roxanne, mute your mic, please.
Hey, Roxanne, we can hear Ron in the background. So can you tell him?
There you go.
There.
Got
okay,
it? We're good?
Good.
Perfect. Okay, I will reshare my screen real quick. And you all saw some bars, right, when I did full screen, so I'm just gonna leave it as half screen.
Okay.
We're going to talk about active listening skills. So let's get into the details.
It's not loud enough, Deep.
What happened?
It's not loud enough.
Not loud enough? Okay, maybe can you turn your audio up on your end, potentially?
I don't know how.
Can you hear it?
No, not a thing.
1 hour course. How about now? Active listening.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
At the end of the video.
Not enough make any difference.
Because good listening is probably the easiest way. What happened?
Barely hear. I don't hear anything now. It's frozen.
Yeah, I paused the video for a second.
We can hear him talking, but it's very low and it's hard to make out what he's saying.
Right.
Is my audio low? I can.
Yes.
Okay.
Can't really hear it.
Yeah, it's like a blurry picture.
Okay. Well, Let's try that button. Okay. How about this? Is it better? Can you hear my audio better?
Can't hear anything now.
You can
Hear
hear
you.
No picture, no audio.
Huh. How about now? Can you hear me?
I can hear
I
you.
hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any problem hearing you. It's just that
Oh, I've unshared my screen. That's why. Okay, here, I'm going to share it one more time. Sound. Let's try that. And
we're going to talk about effective
how's that?
listening skills. So let's get into the details.
can't hear enough to listen to it.
You can or can't?
Cannot hear hardly anything at all.
Okay. How about everybody else?
Same.
Same.
Bob, do you have any ideas on what's going on here?
What I did was I turned up my volume on my computer.
Okay.
How do we do that?
So
It
there
is.
should be down in the bottom right-hand corner, in the tray icon, there's a little, it looks like a little, speaker.
Mm-hmm.
Click on that.
I don't see a speaker.
Okay, I can't see your screen, but there should be down the bottom, there's an up arrow in the bottom right-hand corner of your computer, right? Correct?
No, it says leave.
Okay.
Bob, I don't have that either while I'm on Zoom. I'd have to get off of Zoom to be able to see that.
What you can do is minimize the Zoom window.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Cool. My audio's on full now.
Yeah, the audio through your microphone is really good, so
Okay.
maybe a little bit overdriving, but that's okay.
Okay.
So then if you minimize your Zoom window, then you go down in the bottom right-hand corner. How about, can I share my screen? I can't share my screen.
Sure, here, let me stop share.
Okay.
I turned mine up all the way. So I can't really tell until he turns it on.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
Cool. Let me try it one more time.
I'm
Okay.
turning mine up too.
Cool. Share. Start from the beginning.
We're going to talk about effective listening skills. So let's get into the details.
Is it good?
No. No. You're just gonna have to present the whole thing, Deep.
Hey, Deep, can you send me the link or put the link in chat?
Yeah, I can do that. Should work. Where's the stop share button? Cool. Let's go. Boom. Control C, chat. So that's the first one, and here.
Okay, let's just go. Hold on, let's go one at a time.
Okay. You got that link, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
Hyundai Tucson versus Toyota RAV4.
Hold on a second. Let me.
What Tucson has and what RAV4 doesn't. Hyundai Tucson wins every time.
Volume's great now.
So it's just on my end. That's really weird.
We're going to talk about active listening skills.
Hey,
Let's get into the details.
Sounds good.
Hey there, I'm Alex Lyon, and I actually have a 1-hour course on effective listening skills for leaders. I will tell you more about that at the end of the video. So listening is so important because good listening is probably the easiest way to connect with other people and build relationships. Active listening is the opposite of passive listening, and you have probably experienced this. The person you're talking to might technically be hearing some of what you're saying, but they are tuned out. They're on autopilot. They're just not mentally engaged with what you're saying. And as the speaker, this can be very dissatisfying, very discouraging when people really aren't paying attention to us. Like, why am I even talking in the first place? But active listening looks, sounds, and feels obvious. Active listening means listening completely. But before anybody does that well, there are two secrets, two prerequisites to active listening. Number one, you have to commit. You have to put aside whatever else might be distracting you and make listening a real priority. Good listening is first and foremost a choice that you make every time somebody speaks. Number two, it takes practice. Like any skill, you have to work at it. The good news is that listening is not mysterious or complicated. So let's talk about 4 qualities of active listening that you can put into practice. First, active listening involves nonverbal communication. And there are 2 sides to this. On the one hand, you're demonstrating that you're engaged in paying attention nonverbally. You put your devices completely away, you make eye contact, your body posture is open and oriented toward the other person. Now, on the other side, you're also noticing the speaker's nonverbal cues. There's an expression, you listen with your eyes. And part of that means you're noticing what's happening with the person visually on their mood or their emotion that they're showing. Do they look nervous, frustrated, annoyed? You can pick up on that by actively observing their nonverbal communication. Second, active listening involves verbal communication. Again, there are 2 sides to this. The most obvious part is asking good questions. Probably the most common pattern that good listeners demonstrate is that they ask a good question and then they let the speaker fully answer it. Like a good mental health therapist will ask thoughtful questions and then stop talking for a while and let the client speak. Honestly, what we're paying for in many cases is just somebody to listen carefully to us. So a good question is a huge part of the listening pie. And the other part of verbal communication is those small utterances that show the other person that we're following them, like, I hear you, yeah, that makes sense. Sometimes it's not even full words. It might just be, oh. Those little utterances keep us engaged and show the other person that we're following. Third, active listening involves responding to what somebody just said. So the pattern goes like this. You ask a question, you respond for however long that takes, and at the end of that talking term, you give an informed response to them. So let's say you just ask a person what they've been up to lately. That's your question. And in their talking turn, they tell you that they have been doing diving lately. So you actively listen for a while they're talking, and at the end of their talking turn, it's your turn again. And this is where you show that you were actively following along and were interested in what they were saying. And you can do this by reflecting back what you just heard. You might say something like, wow, that sounds like an exciting sport. That's really cool that you're doing that. Or you could ask another follow-up question. I had no idea that you were into diving. How did you first get into that? Of course, you could do a little bit of both, like I just did. You could make an informed, reflective statement and then ask a follow-up question. The key is to respond to what they have just been saying. What you don't want to do is just look at them blankly and not react when they're done talking. And you've probably had somebody do this to you. You tell them about part of your day or something about your life, and they don't react. They just have this stone face. That's not active listening. If you want a gold star for active listening, then you have to respond to what they just said. Fourth, keep the focus on them and let them talk. Now, this one might seem obvious if you're listening, but when you decide to go into that listening mode, just make a decision that this is going to be all about the other person talking and not about you. Resist that temptation to jump in with your own story or to change the subject to your favorite topic. Keep your talking turns and questions concise, and then stick to whatever topic they're interested in. Now, eventually, once they've done plenty of talking, there will usually be an opportunity later in the conversation for you to share your experiences. But my rule of thumb is to dedicate at least the first half of the conversation to pure active listening. So I hope these 4 tips help you listen completely in your next conversation. Question of the day, which one of these tips do you need the most work on? I would love to read what you have to say below in that comment section. And I do have 2 follow-up videos on listening coming soon, on comprehensive listening and empathetic listening. And I'll link to those in the description below once they are posted. And I also have a 1-hour course on effective listening skills for leaders. You can find out more about that by following the link in the description below the video, and you can find out all the details by following that link. So thanks, God bless, and I will see you in the next video.
Cool. So before we move on to the next video, I think we should relate what we learned in this video to what we all potentially do or could potentially run into. So I posted a question in the chat, and it relates to phone buddies specifically, but we could also run into this type of situation in all of our other programs, such as Read On, here in the Virtual Welcome Center, perhaps even delivering a meal. But one of the qualities mentioned within the video was talking about verbal communication. And specifically within verbal communication, he was talking about asking questions. Now, he didn't get into the nitty-gritty detail about open-ended and closed-ended questions and when to use them. But we're going to focus on the open-ended aspect, specifically for our telephone comfort care program. And does anybody want to come up with a good question we could ask our phone buddies to better communicate and understand our phone buddies as a whole? Who wants to start us off? Any volunteers?
My problem is I tend to interrupt instead of letting them continue. I think of something else that relates to what they're talking about, and I forget to, since it's supposed to be all about my phone buddy, I tend to tell them about what I know or how I relate to that.
Okay. So
Let me add, can I add something to that?
yes, yeah, all yours.
You know, he talked about you have to do some kind of response. You can't just, stare blankly. Another problem can be, and it relates to what Marilyn is saying, is let's use the example he used of diving. Oh, you're diving. I didn't know you were into diving. How did you get into that? What some people do, and of course, not me, of course, but I've had this drilled into my head for so many years. One person might say, diving? Oh, I'm too scared to dive. Oh, my uncle died. My uncle used to dive and he got hurt when he, blah, 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 blah. So you just right away turn it into you instead of, asking about them.
And to follow up on that, I think, what Patty and Marilyn said, you got to really be conscientious of that. And it's not about you there. If somebody wants to know about you, you're going to ask the question. And I catch myself doing that quite a bit. And I've actually caught myself backing off and letting the other person talk. And you have to be conscientious of it. And it's like, just because it stimulates something, and it's like, I don't need to say that right now. I can either file it away and wait for the next opening, or it's not that important. I'm more interested in what they're doing and getting that information from them and being the receiver of the information instead of putting out information. And like I said, I think this is an extremely important topic, and there's all these little nuances that you hear. And like I said, active listening is being engaged with somebody.
And building on what Bob said, receiving information. What I tend to find with my phone buddy, Steve, is I usually just start with how he's doing health-wise. How have you been? Because like recently he started a medication, or no. That's a lie. Recently his doctor told him to cut his potassium out. So take it easy on the potassium. And potassium is found in a lot of things we eat. So recently I was like, that's how I start off my conversation is, how's your potassium looking? Any updates with the doctor? And I mean, he sometimes goes through things that we've already talked about before, but it's good for him because he's able to just, let go of his problems with me, cope with all of his issues in his life through me. And that's kind of what we're there for, right? We're kind of like our phone buddy's therapist, like he mentioned in the video. Not really, because we're not certified or licensed, but in a sense, we're kind of being their therapist, right? We're there to listen to them and get rid of their loneliness. So yeah, anybody want to build on that? Roxanne, potentially?
Well, I think that one of the things that I do that I shouldn't be doing on the phone is I'm listening, but I'm nodding my head. That's how I show I'm listening. And of course they can't hear that, and so then I get these long pauses while then they say, "Are you still there?" and it's like it all makes me cognizant of I've been doing it again. I've been sitting here and I've been nodding my head. But I think as far as any open-ended questions, I think it's worked well for me to say, rather than to get a yes or no out of them, is to ask them to describe, because you can't describe and answer with a yes or no.
And one of the other things when you're listening like that, in your case, Roxanne, is going back to them, and when they say, are you still there? It's like, so what I heard was, and that means you're really engaged. You're actually trying to recite back what they told you. And to me, that's like the highest form of active listening.
It becomes difficult though with people with diminished capacity, mental capacity. It becomes more difficult. I found, and both people I talk to, that's the case. And so I mostly just listen to the same things they say over and over and over and over. And that sometimes is kind of frustrating to me.
But not to them. But not to them.
No, not to them. I don't think.
Right.
It all depends on perspective, right? I mean,
right.
Well, and sometimes, well, actually, most of the time, I take notes when someone is talking to me, so that I can carry that forward. An example was a husband was in the VA hospital, and so I asked him, how is your husband doing? Another one was, well, no, I haven't got the best memory in the world, but at any rate, I do take notes. And then before I call them again, I look at that. And then I can say, I know last time you talked about, having trouble eating or whatever. How's that going? So it kind of keeps the idea of a friendship going.
That's a good idea, Judy. And especially since you talk to 3 different people, you want to keep their story straight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
I'd like to hear Kathy's perspective from, so what does Katomi do to keep you engaged and make you feel less lonely during your phone calls?
You may be spacing out there.
Kathy? Can you hear me?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. What does Katomi do in your phone calls?
Her friend
that
roommate is she calls me once a week. We talk, and she kind of fills me in with what Katomi is doing, and that is so nice. And I really appreciate it because you still feel connected. And Katomi said she's going to have a lot of pictures for us when she gets back. She'll be back around the 14th of
Where did you say she was going again? Is she studying abroad or?
She's in Japan
Oh,
on
Japan.
on a trip.
Okay.
I'm
To
glad
see her
she
parents.
Do what, honey?
See her parents.
Yes. And she is, yeah. And she does a whole lot of traveling, and that's so educational also. But this way, she don't have to go with like it would be with myself, a lot of baggage of having to check with my dog and my home. And it's very special to get to travel while you're young, like yourself.
Hey, Kathy,
Yes.
how do you know that she's interested in what's going on in your life?
Well, cause she'll call me and ask me how am I doing today, and what have I been doing, and what I'm going to do today, and that really is impressive. And then I get to share with her. We're still trying to get her to come and play 500 Rummy with us. We have a friend that's got dementia, her sister, and she's 91, and they'll come over about every other day about 6 o'clock, and because she still lives in assisted living, but her sister has to keep her 12 hours a day, or does, because she don't want to put her in a home yet. And it is really taking a toll on her. But this lady, 91 years old, she can beat the socks off at me. And Katoma thinks it's the funniest thing to see her just fusing through those cards like she does. And it's very good. And the whole group has been so fantastic to me. And just like I was thinking, I'm going to go through Mother's Day this year, and I'm supposedly in remission. I am in remission, and it's a good feeling with all the prayers and support. Because this time last year, I thought I was doomed. It was very dark and dreary feeling.
Yeah.
For sure.
I have one person I talked to who is in a nursing facility now, and it's hard for me to engage him in his activities because he's really not doing anything now. He sometimes will go over the same physical ailments, but unless I do start talking about something that I'm doing and he relates to it, it is hard to engage him for a very long period of time. So our visits are usually very short. Can anyone offer what you do to talk with someone who really isn't doing anything?
Right. Well, I think that I had a person like that, Pam Wainscott. She was my phone buddy before she became Patty's phone buddy. But when I had her, she had a very difficult time. She had COPD and she was on oxygen, and she was having a very difficult time breathing, let alone talking. But she wanted to be on the phone, and her thing was because the only thing happening in her life was trying to breathe, right? And so what she wanted from me was for me to talk about what was happening in my life. That was comforting to her. So I don't think it's necessarily bad. And I think it's actually kind of healthy for them to hear somebody else's stories, because in the end, what it's really all about is presence. Are you present with that person? And even with Sue talking with her patients that have dementia, it really doesn't matter as to they're repeating the same thing. It's true.
Right.
But Sue has presence with them. And people like this, you might think, well, that's no big thing to have that presence. But people like this have no one. I mean, because who else is going to be there? How long are they going to listen to the same repeat questions? Or how long are they going to be able to understand that somebody can't breathe, therefore they can't talk, therefore you need to talk? And it comes to all about, are you there?
You know, Roxanne, I think that's so important about talking about yourself when it's appropriate. And well, I do have 3 callers, but they're all very different people, so I don't really have a problem telling them apart. But I was reluctant to talk too much about myself, but I know I dropped it in one conversation with a woman who's in a wheelchair, and I said, well, my doctor thought it's probably neuropathy. And she said, well, I have neuropathy. And she proceeded to tell me a lot of really good information, even one test I should ask my doctor to do. And what that does is it gives my phone buddies more of a real friendship feel to it. So when I can bring up something that's going on with me, I think it's a plus, as long as obviously it isn't all about me, but the one woman was supposed to be walking, and I said, oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I'm supposed to be walking, but actually I haven't gotten around to it. I said, now that you're talking about it, I'm going to say, okay, if you walk, I'm going to walk too. And then the next time we talked, I said, well, guess what? I'm walking now. So thank you very much. And she laughed. I mean, it's a friendship. It turns out to be a friendship. And then you're exchanging information about each other. So I'm glad you said that, Roxanne. I think that was really well put.
Right. I'm glad that you mentioned that, Judy. So it becomes a sharing. And I think one thing that I think of when I look at DEEP, our older participants always comment about how great it is to hear from these students. And they love to hear what these students are doing, right? They love to hear about what classes they're in, or who they talked to that day, or where they went to that day, because they no longer have that a lot of times in their lives. And amazingly, and DEEP pointed this out to me at our volunteer dinner that we just had, that this isn't just about the needs for older people to feel they belong or less lonely. It's for the younger people too, the kids in Weimar, because they too are seeking to belong. They too are feeling lonely. And so it's a mutual exchange.
Yep.
Can I say one more thing before we move on to Marilyn? Don't worry if he really doesn't have all that much to talk about and you can't get up a conversation. Just the fact that you've called him, you've asked him how he's doing. If you have to accept him as he is, and even if that is not being able to talk a lot,
He said that he just is thrilled that I call him. He wanted me to start calling him every day.
Oh, good.
That's a good sign that he wants to hear from you.
Yeah.
Deep, what were you going to say? You were going to say something right before Patty said
so,
something.
Building on
I interrupted you.
all good. Building on what you, Roxanne, and Judy had to say. So sometimes when I'm talking to Steve is also on oxygen, right? So sometimes he can't talk. So he usually, for the brief period that he can talk, he'll ask me, hey, what experiments are you doing in the laboratory? What's happening with the zebrafish? Tell me something. And it's just more of a me getting my therapy session and Steve listening and me just coping or explaining to him about everything that went wrong in the laboratory or went right, and how my research is going. And he gets enjoyment out of that. And sometimes he can relate to it with things that he did in his past. And then we just go down that loophole. And it's fun. It's interesting. It is two-sided. That's what I wanted to mention.
Yeah, very good. Two-sided. I like that concept. It is mutual reminiscing.
Yep.
I love that term.
It's a symbiotic relationship, you could say. Right?
Exactly.
Anybody else? Cheryl? Do you have anything to say, Cheryl?
I speak to Kathleen, but it seems like we don't really have any dead space in our conversation. We have a lot in common. We whenever we have a moment, we can be on the phone for quite some time talking about everything, it seems like. So it's easy. It's an easy conversation. It's not something you have to think of what to say, how to say it, or anything. I know for myself, there's a lot of time, because I don't have a lot of family and stuff here. So I'm conscious that my daughter says I repeat things a lot. So now I said, well, did I tell you about so-and-so? And she'd say yes or no, and then we move on to whether I did or I didn't. But when you don't speak to someone for a long time, you do tend to repeat because you don't remember when you said, if you told them anything that you meant to, or you already covered that conversation before.
Yeah.
So I can see where the repetition can come into play.
Yeah. Anybody else before we move on? Going
I
one.
find it,
Oh, all yours. Who was that?
June, I think it was June.
June?
yeah, I find it hard sometimes to talk to Christine, my phone friend, just because when I ask her how she's doing, she always says fine. And there's nothing I can add to that, you know. She's 95 years old and 95 tomorrow, and she invited me to her birthday party. So I'm really looking forward to that. And she's looking forward to meeting me. But I don't know, when she says fine or one word answers, I find it hard to respond to that.
Yep, those are killers. That's hard.
Yeah.
I think that the question about how are you is so typical and you know, and we're so used to it in today's America that we say, how are you? And we expect the other person to say fine. And we really don't even want to know how are they really doing, you know? I mean, so it's kind of a greeting only. It's become a greeting only. So I think other questions might be, she does attend church. She's very involved in church. Even if you get her, she's really very good and loves to talk about what at church had special meaning for you today. What was in the gospel message that really hit you, you know, that type of thing. Even reading the gospel message together and then talking about it. She likes that. I know Christine too, and she loves that. So that might help, and that might be a way forward for you.
I think that I found that it's best not to ask questions that can be answered by yes or no, but can be used. They have to explain a little bit further than just a one-word answer.
Yep.
Actually, Marilyn, I've got a good example of that. My daughter, who's not a real talker, if I ask her how's work, she'll say fine.
Right.
But if I say to her, what happened at work that was interesting today, she can go on and on and on.
Right.
Okay, I'll incorporate that, especially that church thing. You know, and ask her about the gospel or the sermon or, you know, those kind of things.
Right. Because you also are into church. So that would be a real common ground for both of you.
Right. Different denomination, but, you know,
same faith, same Christianity.
That's right. And you know, I'm not into church, but I would be very happy to carry on a conversation about it with somebody and ask them what was meaningful to them and be able to listen to that and relate to that.
It's amazing.
So we're supposed to pay attention in church? Is that
Was that an open-ended question?
That can be answered yes or no.
Right, so that was not an open-ended
No, it
question.
wasn't.
You're not supposed to be playing on your phone, Bob.
Oh. I'm taking notes, okay? I'm just taking notes.
He's taking notes from me.
He loves, Bob takes notes no matter what, you know? That's one thing I learned, no matter what type of, even at social gatherings, when I first met Bob, and this was quite a while ago now, and we were at some social gathering. I think we had an outreach program or something, you know, at the time. And he got up and he went and got paper from out of the computer, and he went around and he handed everybody a piece of paper and a pencil and said, now we could take notes.
He's trying to put it down for long-term memory, right?
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's too bad. It's too bad that the phone buddies can't see you as you talk, as we're doing here today. We can see each other, and that makes it more meaningful when you can have a personal contact with each other. But maybe the future we'll be able to see each other.
Well, you can Zoom together. I mean, if they have a computer, right, then you can always Zoom together.
That's the problem. Most older people are computer literate, so you know it's a problem. But as time goes on, you know, I think people will get more familiar with the technology. So hopefully,
yeah. Cool, Bob. Take it away with the next video. I sent the link in the chat.
Let's see.
As I'm in the midst of applying for residency right now, wish me luck, Grammarly has again been a lifesaver with my application.
We're going to learn about empathetic listening. We'll talk about what it is, what it isn't, and give you 3 tips to get better at it. So let's do it. Hey there, I'm Alex Line, and this channel is all about helping you develop your communication and leadership skills. I actually have an hour-long course on effective listening skills for leaders, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. Today, we're talking about empathetic listening, and the root word of empathetic is empathy, and that means your ability to understand and share another person's feelings. So empathetic listening is about paying special attention to the way the other person is feeling by putting yourself in their shoes to understand where they're coming from. One benefit of empathetic listening is that the other person feels understood. That's a real gift that you're giving them. This is one of the main reasons people go to see a counselor, a therapist, or a friend who they know is a good listener. Another benefit is for us, and that it automatically boosts what some people call our emotional intelligence, or EQ. It helps us understand how the other people around us are doing, and that helps us respond in more helpful ways to the needs of the moment. So what is empathetic listening not? Well, empathizing does not mean you necessarily agree or have changed your mind. So I'm a parent, and my son is not always thrilled about doing his homework. And I can connect with that emotion. I can empathize, but that doesn't mean I'm going to tell him he can blow off his homework. My empathy does, however, help me maintain a good, healthy connection with him because he knows that I know where he's coming from. Empathy also does not mean we should try to automatically fix a problem that the other person might have. The author Roy Bennett once said, sometimes all a person wants is an empathetic ear. All he or she needs is to talk it out. So empathetic listening doesn't mean jumping in to solve a person's situation. So what does it look like? What does it sound like to listen with empathy? Let's look at 3 tips to help you get better at it. First, it has to be genuine. You have to mentally and emotionally put yourself in the other person's shoes. Imagine what it must be like to be in their situation. If you have ever had someone fake listen to you, then you know those little superficial behaviors they give off, and it comes across as inauthentic. You don't want to do that. So you have to do some internal dialogue. Say to yourself, how would it feel if someone just insulted me like that? How would it feel if I've just been fired? How would it feel if I had just been passed over for a promotion? And then imagine what that would be like. Really put yourself in the other person's shoes. Listening with empathy is first and foremost about making that genuine effort to see the situation through the eyes of the other person, to feel what they are feeling. Second, listen to their verbal and nonverbal communication. So in my experience, people will usually show their emotions much sooner than they will explain their feelings. And sometimes their verbals and nonverbals don't always match. So someone might say, I'm fine, but you can clearly tell by their nonverbal cues that they are not fine. I was listening to somebody the other day and they were giving an update on a project, and I could tell nonverbally that they were on the edge of tears. And they were just little flashes of emotions on their face. Now, their sadness had nothing to do with the project they were talking about. They were just struggling with something else. And she wasn't talking about her emotions, and her verbals and nonverbals didn't match up. But I noticed, and I was able to listen with empathy because I picked up on those nonverbal cues. Now, sometimes people will verbally say, just come out and say it, that's really frustrating, or this is driving me crazy. And I pay really special attention to that verbal message. If they have come out and said it, then I really need to pay attention to that. But we have to be on the lookout for their nonverbal cues because they are often the ones that they will show us first. Third, reflect back to them what you sense they are feeling using your verbal and nonverbal skill. So this means communicating in plain language what you're noticing. And I keep it really simple. If they seem frustrated, I might say, that sounds frustrating. Or if I were in your shoes, I'd feel the same way. I don't try to analyze or evaluate their emotions like a therapist. I'm not a therapist. I just show them that I'm noticing, and then I give them more room to keep talking. Sometimes I'm even more concise. Like if something unexpected happened to them, I might just say, wow. And then I show that expression on my face as well. Other nonverbals might be a caring facial expression or nodding to show them that you're tracking with them, that you're following them. Now, on the other side, if the person is feeling positive emotions, then reflect back that to them too. So someone I know just earned her master's degree, and she was obviously happy about it, and she told someone at work. And her coworker paused, looked her right in the eye, and with a lot of care on her face, and said, that is a really big deal. Wow. So that's A+ empathy. My friend said it felt so affirming. It was a highlight of her day. So many people assume that listening with empathy means listening to people's difficult emotions, but you can also share people's joy as well. And there's a lot of value, a lot of relational value in sharing other people's positive emotions. So question of the day, have you ever had somebody really listen to you? How did that make you feel? I would love to read your comments below. And as mentioned, I have an hour-long course on effective listening skills for leaders. I will put a link to that in the description below the video. Feel free to take a look at those details. I also recently made 2 related overlapping videos, active listening skills and comprehensive listening skills. I'll put links to those below as well so you can check them out. So thanks, God bless, and I will see you in the next.
So from our perspective with the Telephone Comfort Care program, we can't really listen non-verbally. But I'd like to say for the Virtual Welcome Center, listening actively, we can do a lot of non-verbal cues here, right? Such as nodding our head, making eye contact with the person that's talking, by going to their photo or video. But on top of all of that, what are some verbal cues that we use to be more empathetic with our phone buddies? For example, what I do with Steve, so Steve is also a part of our meal delivery program, and he used to cook, no pun intended, Bob. But he used to cook, he was a chef, and what I like to do is I like to relate the meal deliveries and the meals that he had and take it back to when he used to cook. So, for example, he might say, "Oh, I had pasta today." Then I would ask, when was the last time you remember cooking pasta when you were working? And how did it make you feel? And really getting that emotional connection with him. So anybody else? Any examples?
I just want to point out the positive. I mean, certainly the empathy for things that are going wrong is very important, but don't forget the positive. I think it's a huge deflating experience to have told someone something that's very important to you and very happy, and they just pass it by. I just think it's to hold on to that for a minute and make that last a little longer, their happiness over whatever the positive thing was.
And I think too, there's an element of trust in revealing your innermost feelings and thoughts. To me, you have to feel a certain assurance that the person will respond positively. So I think the trust is there, the need.
And is the trust, is that just something that builds up over time and the person acts consistent in whatever their behavior is?
Probably, if it's somebody, yes, that you have known for a long time. I think that's true.
Yeah, we used to call that building up that emotional bank account.
And don't try to fix it. I love that he brought that up.
Yeah.
Don't try to fix it. I had a friend who was a really good friend, a really wonderful person, but something had made me very upset. And she right away told me whatever it was meant to be. And I said, "Will you stop?" I said, "I need a minute to be upset here. Just wait a minute." Because she was just barreling right over my bad feelings, was going to fix it for me.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he brought that up. I think and that's a hard thing. And I would think that would be an easy thing for us to fall into, to try and help our phone buddy fix whatever's wrong. And that, believe me, that's not very often a good thing.
And I would say that I would expand that beyond the phone buddy, because I've caught myself in that position way too many times. And it's just now I've slowly and patiently come to the point where I just try to listen.
I
It's
think
painful for me to do that.
oftentimes that's all it is they just want to have one way to process it themselves by going over it and talking to someone about it.
I've noticed myself saying stuff out loud to someone is a different experience than when I just think it in my head.
Right.
And it really helps to
verbalize.
Not even considering their response. It's just when I'm listening to myself, it helps me see something different than what I was thinking before.
And that idea of fixing stuff, to me, you might have something, and if you listen, they're going to work their way through it. And again, this is something I still have a hard time doing it, but they might not do it the way that I think they should, but it's going to get done, and they're coming up with the idea. That means they're more engaged with it and they're more invested in it.
I've run into that problem too when I used to try to fix it, and then they start talking and they've tried everything that I already said.
Yeah.
So sometimes what helps to me is, gee, what have you tried to get rid of this? Or, is there anything that helps with that?
Oh, good idea.
Sharon, you've been really quiet. You must have some thoughts on all of this.
Oh, well, a couple, I guess, as we've gone along, different hats, and Patty and I came from the same profession where you have boundaries. And I was thinking, relationship with a phone buddy, and as time goes on and you feel like you have a closer relationship with them, do you still think of boundaries? Like, how much do you self-reveal to the other person, again, because it's not about you, it's about them. But if you have a similar experience, I'm finding as time goes on, I'm a little more likely to maybe talk about an incident that happened to me, which I wouldn't have at the beginning of the relationship. So I'm kind of watching that. I mean, I don't want to be so non-revealing. I mean, that because I'm a real person to her, and she knows, you know, well, you know, you have feelings and you do things too. Tell me a little bit about them. But yeah, I struggle a little bit with keeping boundaries, and what Bob was talking about, fixing things, is the other thing too. The other hat that many of us wear is that of parent, and that's been my job or was my job. See, I even said is instead of was. That was my job, you know, for 20 years, and it's hard to give that up when that's the role you're expected to play. You know, your kid falls down, you know what to do. You bandage their knee and send them on their way. And even with harder life problems, that was my tendency. And I have, like Bob said, really struggled with that. Even I'm a lot better. I mean, I'm 67 years old. You would think that I would want to quit fixing everybody's problems, but it's just so yeah, those are the two things I'm thinking of as I'm listening to everybody else. Things that I could do better. You know, like with boundaries, I don't want a real strict boundaries. You know, with my phone buddy, but I don't want to have no boundaries, because then again it becomes about me, not about them. And to be aware if she's presenting with a problem and I'm jumping in too soon, or I'm like Patty had the good idea about saying, well, what kinds of things have you tried already to fix this, instead of jumping in and saying, you know, what, I had something like that happen to me and here's what I did. So yeah, these are both areas that I'm continuing to be watchful of.
I think that what you mentioned with the boundaries, I really connected with that, because I was a nurse in my past life. And so my job was not to, it was to listen to patients, listen very carefully, you know, because depending upon what they said could mean that their condition was also changing, you know, and I better be on top of it. My position was not to tell them all about my family or tell them, and so I too had to have those boundaries. Boundaries in nursing is really as critical as it is in psychology. And therefore, when I got into this field, which is a different field, this is about building friendships now, you know, and I have no answers for this, but I have the same difficulty as you, because initially it was like, I got to have these boundaries. I went right back into what I had always known all my life, you know. Exactly. And I had a wonderful person from the Indiana, Kentucky Synod who's no longer there. She transferred to another place, but she was actually going to come and talk to us about boundaries and how in making friendships, it's a different type of boundary, you know, it's not the professional boundary anymore. And what is that? And what does it look like that? And there's a closeness that develops in friends that never develops between a patient and a doctor, or a patient and a nurse, or whatever, right? She never was able to make it. And maybe that's why I still have no answers except to tell you, like you, I struggle.
Okay, I kind of hate to cut. Well, go ahead.
I thought initially we were supposed to call them. I have one person that I call only, another person doesn't seem to answer the phone and will call me back at whatever time, or not necessarily right back. What do most people do? What's the situation?
Okay.
I think that depends upon the type of relationship that you have. Some used to call me too, because they had a lot of doctor visits. They had a lot of this, whenever I called them, they were never available. So they did call me, and that was okay with me. But for some people, it's not okay. Some people don't like another person call. They don't even want them to know their phone number that they're calling from, and they'll block it so that when you get a call from them, you see private number because they blocked their number. So unfortunately, it's like boundary setting. There is no right or wrong kind of response. It depends upon you. It depends upon your relationship with that person and how you feel and where you're going. I have one that I wish
you had a certain
Okay,
way to do that or not.
I hate to break in, but we're 5 minutes over our normal period, so I think we'll perhaps we can carry. This is such a good subject. We could perhaps talk about this again in the future. So, if I might, I'll
boundaries.
As we normally do, we end it in prayer. Would that be okay?
Yep, Sean, you got it. All yours.
Okay. God, thank you thank you for allowing us to participate in the art of listening. God, it is wonderful to learn, and it's to learn and visit with each other. And God, thank you for the seasons. Winter is such a long and dreary time, but we look forward to the summer warmth. And God, please bless everyone here. Bless their families. Amen.
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 Deep. It's a great subject.
Thank you.
Deep,
everybody.
wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, it was a good
this
subject.
needs another
Applause.
session.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yes. Okay,
Thank
we'll
you,